Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Positive Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Parmis, and I'm so glad that you're here. If you want to listen to more episodes like this one on self-improvement, mindset, and wellness, go ahead and hit that follow button to join the family. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to ask you guys for a quick and kind favor, and that is if you haven't yet left a review, I would absolutely appreciate if you could do so. It helps so much to build this podcast and help it grow so that we can increase the positive impact we make and just make it overall a bigger community. Also, if you are looking for daily motivation, follow me on Instagram at Positive Proof Podcast, where I post behind the scenes content sometimes and polls as to what you guys want to see, daily quotes that serve as daily reminders. And if anyone is wondering how to leave episode requests, you can actually send me your thoughts via the DM me your thoughts link in the description or via Instagram DM. That works as well. Now, to get into today's episode, I want to preface by saying I didn't know what real safety and love felt like until I experienced it, like really experienced it. And not just the butterflies or the aesthetic moments or the look how good we look together posts. I'm talking about the kind of love that doesn't need proving, the kind that is so grounded, so intentional, and so safe that you actually start to relax into who you are. And that's what this episode is about. Today, I want to talk about what a healthy relationship actually looks like, not the Instagram version, not the trauma bond roller coaster that we romanticize because it feels intense, but the real thing. The peaceful, supportive, emotionally safe kind of love that you didn't even realize existed because, let's be honest, we don't see it modeled often enough, especially not online. There is something so underrated about healthy masculinity, and I don't mean the fake deep alpha guy vibes or the one who acts emotionally unavailable to seem mysterious. I mean real, grounded, high-value men who make you feel safe without dimming your light. Men who are emotionally present, consistent, and genuinely happy to see you thrive. The ones who lead with kindness and not control, who offer stability without needing to dominate. It's not loud or performative. It's calm, it's consistent, and it's real. And when I think about my current relationship, I honestly get so emotional sometimes, guys, not because it's perfect, but because it feels so wildly different from what I used to think love was. The things I thought I had to beg for, effort, emotional safety, peace, are just there. No drama, no confusion, and that should be the standard. The truth is, I didn't always have high standards the way I do now. I thought I did back then, but my standards were based around things that didn't matter. Like if he had a good enough job, made enough money, was he well connected enough? But that does not equate love. I also accepted a lot of gray areas and ignored a lot of red flags and told myself that maybe I was just asking for too much. But spoiler alert, I wasn't, and I just hadn't met someone capable of offering what I was asking for. So in this episode, I want to take you through a 3-part episode. What I've learned about green flags, healthy masculinity, and the relationship standards I now hold because I've actually seen what's possible. So I'll be sharing real things my boyfriend does, the kind of small but powerful behaviors that builds trust, security, and joy day after day. Because listen, everyone deserves a fairy tale relationship like you see in the movies. And yes, it's possible because I too was the one who thought it wasn't until my now relationship. So if you've ever wondered what it looks like to be loved well without the games, this one's for you. And a little disclaimer here that we are solely focusing on the male side of things. A lot of these things can apply both ways, so please don't take it out of context thinking he should do all these things and you're off the hook. A relationship is two-sided, but for today's purpose, we will be talking about one. So let's get into it. So the first part of today's episode is going to be green flags that actually matter. And let's be honest, for most of us, we were trained to look for the wrong things. We were taught to seek butterflies instead of stability, drama instead of clarity, money instead of character or balance, chemistry over connection, and quote unquote, he's not that bad instead of quote, he's actively incredible to me. So today I want to walk through the green flags that actually matter, the ones that will change your life, raise your standards, and recalibrate what love is supposed to feel like. Because when you've only experienced inconsistency, superficial love, or effort on his terms, a man who shows up every day with gentleness and intention will feel like a miracle. But it's not a miracle. It's just what it looks like when someone loves you well. So for starters, one of the biggest green flags is that he solves your problems because he wants to. This is one of the most underrated green flags in a relationship, and that's having a man who doesn't just listen to your problems, but he solves them. I'm not talking about toxic fix-it behavior that overrides your emotions. I'm talking about the kind of masculine presence that sees you drowning and doesn't just sit there rubbing your back saying, "Oh, that sucks." He gets in the water with you. He helps you out. He makes the situation his own, not in a controlling way, but in a deeply connected one. When I'm overwhelmed or confused about something in my career or just unsure what direction to take, my boyfriend doesn't just say, "You'll figure it out. Don't worry, baby." He literally starts researching. He offers real input. He gives me options. He helps me weigh decisions. He gets invested. And whether it's something personal, professional, or emotional, he meets me with grounded energy and actionable support rather than just, again, rubbing my back and saying, "I know this sucks, but it's okay. It's going to get better." Like, that doesn't do anything for me. And I want to say this clearly. If you're lost in life or struggling with something real or feeling like you're in a rut and the man you're with isn't actively trying to help you find clarity, solutions, or peace, that says a lot. A high-value man sees your stress as his problem too, not because he's trying to control it, but because your well-being is his priority. He doesn't run from your heaviness. He meets it with masculine energy that says, "We'll figure this out together." It's not about fixing everything perfectly, it's about partnership. And if your problems feel like a you thing instead of an us thing, take note. And by the way, as we get on to the next few green flags that I'm going to be talking about, it is okay to disagree with me. This is just my point of view and what I've experienced to work well. So feel free to take what resonates. The next green flag is he does things he doesn't want to just to make you happy. And I know this one sounds simple, but it's massive because we've gotten so used to low effort men that we've convinced ourselves that asking for anything extra is too much. But here's the truth. Love without sacrifice isn't love. It's convenience. My boyfriend has done things he'd never normally care about just because I cared. He's come with me to events he wouldn't have picked himself. He's waited patiently while I browsed stores, taken photos when I didn't even have to ask, watched shows he wasn't into, that's a big one, or driven out of his way to make my life easier. And not once has he made me feel like I was a burden or it was a burden. Never an eye roll, never a guilt trip, just presence. He gives up so much of what he likes because seeing me happy makes him happier than doing what he would have liked. And that, my friends, is what true love is. He's even sat through things he clearly wasn't enjoying and still made it enjoyable for me. And that's emotional generosity. And it says, your joy matters to me. Because we've also got people that will do the things that they don't like just to make the other person happy, but you can tell they're just miserable. The man who does things he doesn't want to just to make you happy, he's mature. He's in love. That's someone who isn't just trying to coexist with you. They're actively trying to pour into your joy. And I've never had to ask. He listens and he initiates it. If you have to beg or ask or nag him, it's still not it. If a man can't do the occasional thing that doesn't benefit him directly just to see you smile, what are you even doing? Relationships aren't always 50-50, but they should feel like 100-100 when it comes to effort. And not just effort on his terms, this is really important, but effort on your terms. What effort means to you might be different than what effort means to him, so it needs to be communicated between the two of you. The next green flag is he plans date nights without being reminded. This one's my favorite. I love date nights and my boyfriend does an amazing job at planning them. But one of the most emotionally safe things a man can do is take initiative, especially in romance. There is just something deeply affirming about being with someone who not only loves you, but plans for you, who thinks ahead about spending time with you, who wants to make memories with you without being nudged into it. Whether it's dinner reservations, surprise coffee drop-offs, or saying, "Get ready, I've got us tonight," that is a green flag. And not because you need to be spoiled or surprised every week, but because it shows care. It shows attention. It shows presence. It shows balance. It shows that even through a busy week, he was able to think of you and plan ahead for you. It says, "You're on my mind even when you're not around." And planning doesn't have to mean something extravagant. It's not about the budget. It's about the thoughtfulness. It's about effort. And when a man chooses to create shared experiences, it shows he's invested in you, not just the convenience of having you around. And let's be real, there's a reason it hits different when a man plans a date. When a man takes the lead in creating time and space for connection, it activates something primal in the best way. It signals stability, structure, and intention, qualities rooted in healthy masculine energy. You feel like you can relax. You feel like you're being held. It creates polarity, that dynamic where you don't have to be in your doer mode all the time. You can just show up, be in your feminine, and enjoy. It also sets the tone for how he sees you, not just as someone who fits into his life, but someone who he's actively building a life with. Because when a man is serious about you, he plans, he prepares, and he takes initiative, not because he has to, but because he wants to lead with love.
Let's take a quick break.
I'm David Coe, CEO of Calm, a proud dad and the son of Korean immigrants. Each week, during Mental Health Awareness Month, I sit down with leaders, artists, and changemakers to talk about the habits, boundaries, and personal practices that help them stay at the top of their game while prioritizing mental health. Let's recognize, reflect, and recharge together.
If you always feel like the planner, the initiator, the one holding the structure of your relationship, that is emotional labor. That's you being in your masculine energy 24/7. And eventually that builds resentment. I promise you it does. I've been there. A man who truly values you will want to create shared experiences. He will want to design beautiful memories with you, not just show up to the ones that you made. And it won't feel like pulling teeth. It'll feel like being cherished. Next green flag was my absolute non-negotiable when I was entering into my now relationship. And that is the fact that he's gentle even when he's frustrated. You learn the most about someone in how they handle their own emotions, especially under stress. And one of the most beautiful green flags I've experienced is gentleness. Not just when things are easy, but when they're not. My boyfriend never raises his voice. He doesn't weaponize silence. He doesn't mock, belittle, or get sarcastic when he's upset. That last one is a big one because even if a man isn't aggressive, loud, or openly disrespectful, sarcasm is often the passive-aggressive tool of choice, and it cuts just as deep. But with a gentle man, there's no need for defensiveness because he's steady. He explains. He doesn't explode. And when something's bothering him, he makes sure I feel safe, not blamed. That alone is so rare. That is emotional intelligence in action. Because here's the truth. Gentleness is not weakness. It's restraint. It's power with control. A gentle man is not incapable of anger. He just refuses to aim it at you. He knows how to hold tension without transferring it onto the person he loves. And that is maturity. That's leadership, and that's protection. And real protection is not just physical, it's psychological. If your nervous system feels safe around him, that's your sign. You shouldn't be bracing for impact every time there's tension. You shouldn't be walking on eggshells or reading between lines. A man who truly loves you doesn't make his stress your problem. He doesn't punish you emotionally because he doesn't have the tools to cope. Instead, he regulates. He breathes through it. He pauses before reacting. He self-soothes so he doesn't make you do it for him. And I'm going to share something personal here. Whenever we're having a harder conversation or something emotional comes up, my boyfriend will instinctively reach for my hand, and it sounds simple, but it completely shifts the energy. And suddenly it's not you versus me, it's us together trying to solve something gently. That physical connection right there, even just a hand on my knee or rubbing my back, it softens everything. It reminds me that I'm safe, that we're good, and we're just talking. And that's what emotional regulation creates, a safe container. Because it's not about being conflict-free, it's about creating an environment where conflict doesn't feel like a war, where hard moments don't feel like punishment, where you can cry, express, process, even disagree, and still feel completely secure in the love underneath. Because when a man knows how to hold space without hurting, shutting down, or spiraling, that is a green flag you never forget. That's the kind of masculinity that makes you feel more feminine, more open, more at ease, and more in love. The next green flag is that he doesn't expect things from me. He just gives. This one might be controversial, but healthy love is not transactional. It's not, I did this so you owe me that. It's not tit for tat. And it's definitely not, I'll show up for you if you behave how I want. One of the most powerful green flags is a man who gives freely. Not for control, not to guilt you, but just because he loves you. He helps, he shows up, he supports without expectations. And let's be honest, a lot of people say they're generous, but the second their needs are met on their timeline, their energy shifts. The affection disappears, the tone changes, the attitude creeps in, and it becomes conditional. And conditional love will make you feel like you're constantly auditioning for someone's approval. My boyfriend never makes me feel like I'm failing as a partner because I didn't perform a certain way. He doesn't keep score. He doesn't act entitled to anything. He doesn't expect emotional favors in return for doing the bare minimum. He is secure enough to love without needing constant reassurance. And he gives from overflow, not from obligation. And in that environment, you want to give more naturally, not because you're scared to lose him and not because you feel pressured, but because it feels safe to pour back into someone who's been pouring into you with no strings attached. That is where the magic happens. It is the type of dynamic that breathes instead of suffocates, that inspires instead of demands. And it's in that freedom that real connection blooms. And while we're here, let's talk about the gender role thing, because this is where it gets messy for a lot of people. Yes, some women like feminine roles in a relationship. Cooking, nesting, pouring love into a home. And that can be beautiful when it's offered freely, but it stops being beautiful the second it's expected, as a default job, as something you should be doing because you're a woman. And that is where the resentment builds. There are so many men out there who still quietly believe that the emotional and domestic labor should fall entirely on the woman, that she should cook, she should clean, care, and still show up looking pretty and soft, while they sit back and do the bare minimum because they pay the bills or go to work. But here's the reality. Even if a woman wants to cook and clean, she might not always have the time or energy to do it. And if her partner doesn't offer help, if he just sits there waiting for it to happen, that is not partnership. That is outdated programming. My boyfriend never assumes. He doesn't expect dinner. He doesn't expect surprises. He doesn't expect anything from me, like it's his birthright. He notices when I'm tired. He helps without being asked. He doesn't tie his love to a checklist of what I did that day. And honestly, that's what makes me want to do more, because I feel appreciated, not obligated. And there's nothing wrong with embracing femininity. There is nothing wrong with traditional roles if they're chosen with love and mutual respect. But love becomes heavy when expectations replace appreciation. And a lot of women are silently drowning under the weight of roles they never agreed to, while men pat themselves on the back for doing the dishes once. A man who truly values you will see your energy as sacred. He won't expect you to run the emotional and domestic household like it's your second job. He's going to look for ways to lighten your load, not add to it. And when that happens, when there's no pressure or no performance, no, you owe me this because I did that, that's where love starts to feel like peace. That's where giving becomes joy, not a burden. Next green flag is that he supports my work, my passions, and ideas like they're his own. This is the green flag that really deserves more hype. A man who gets excited about your dreams, who doesn't just let you do your thing, but wants to be part of it. I have lost count of how many times my boyfriend has offered to help with my content, given me feedback on something I created, sent me resources, or brainstormed ideas with me just because he genuinely cares. Even sometimes randomly when I least expect it and I'm doing something completely different, he will send me his thoughts or ideas, etc. And not once has he made me feel like my goals were silly, unrealistic, or distracting. He genuinely loves being involved. He sees my passions as a core part of who I am, and he treats it with that level of respect. If your man's eyes glaze over every time you talk about your work or your dreams, that is not love, that's distance. A high-value partner wants in on your world. It's not about being a business partner, it's about being a life partner. Someone who gets involved because they want to see you win, because your wins are his wins. That is partnership energy. That's the standard. Next green flag is that he smiles through stress and protects my peace.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, this is Chris from the Financial Philosophers Podcast, and I'd like to invite you to come check out our show. We explore the nuances of personal finance on topics that are both simple and complex. Rather than regurgitating the same financial rules of thumb you've heard over and over again, we do a deep dive with real-life examples about compelling and relatable financial topics. I guarantee you will walk away with something new you didn't know before. Come nerd out with us, and let's take this financial journey together.
This one makes me emotional sometimes because life is hard. We all go through pressure, anxiety, burnout, but it's how someone carries it that really shows you their true character. And my boyfriend has had moments of stress that would break most people, but he still shows up for me with calm energy. He doesn't dump it on me. He doesn't bring it home like a storm cloud. He protects my peace even when he's battling his own internal battles. And let me just tell you, even when he's battling his own internal battles, he puts on the brightest smile for me. And that is emotional maturity. That is leadership. And that is love. He knows I'm sensitive. He knows I absorb energy. So instead of expecting me to hold his emotional world too, he manages his energy with care and brings warmth to ours. He doesn't make me brace for his moods. He doesn't treat me like his emotional punching bag. And that level of emotional awareness is so rare. It's masculine in the most protective way possible. A man who makes your life lighter, even when his own is heavy, that is a man who understands love. That is someone who won't collapse the whole house when life gets hard. And that is someone who makes you feel safe to rest. And here's something I've noticed about high-value men. They don't overshare their stress with you just to unload it. If they can handle it, they will. It's not that they suppress things, they just filter what they bring into the space you share. They will absolutely open up if it's necessary, if they need support, or if it affects you, but more often than not, they choose to handle it quietly so they don't disrupt the peace of the home or the emotional safety of their partner. And this becomes increasingly important when you have kids. And quite honestly, that is one of the most beautiful things to witness. A man who doesn't see vulnerability as weakness, but still chooses discernment. He doesn't keep you in the dark, but he doesn't drag you through unnecessary chaos either. My boyfriend will talk to me when it matters, when it's relevant, when it's something he knows I can help with or hold with him, but most of the time he moves through stress like a man who's protecting more than just himself. He's protecting us, and that makes me feel safe in a way I cannot even explain. Because love is not just about sharing everything, it's about knowing what not to share. It's about choosing your moments, choosing peace, choosing to lead with steadiness when things feel unstable. And when a man does that, when he gives you the gift of emotional security, even through his own storms, that is when you know you're in the presence of someone so rare. That is the kind of love that makes your nervous system settle. The kind where you're not just surviving next to each other, but you're calm, protected, and free. The next green flag is that he's not too cool for emotional intelligence. We live in a culture where so many men want to seem detached, uninterested, or emotionally unavailable, as if that's attractive, but it's not. Real men lean in. They actually ask how you're doing and actually listen. They pick up on your tone, your body language, your shifts in energy, and they care. My boyfriend does this daily. He'll notice if I'm off and gently ask if something's wrong. He's emotionally observant and present, not avoidant, not performative. And he doesn't just hear, he understands. He doesn't think through things on a surface level. He analyzes situations, pays attention to nuance, and reflects before reacting. He doesn't just listen to respond, but he listens to absorb. And it's in that awareness that real connection grows. It's not about being dramatic or over-emotional. It's about being tuned in, connected, emotionally aware. He notices shifts in energy. He asks intentional questions, or he holds space without trying to fix or minimize. When a man can sit in your discomfort without making it about him, or when he can validate your emotions while still offering calm, grounded insight, that is emotional intelligence. And honestly, that is so sexy. That is rare. That's what's holding out for. It means he's done the work. It means he's secure enough in himself to hold your complexity without shutting down or turning cold. And that kind of presence, it makes you feel deeply seen. And more importantly, it makes you feel safe. The next green flag is that he respects boundaries, especially in public. How a man acts in front of other people matters a lot. Your man should never joke in front of his friends about being single or what other women are like or wanting to go clubbing or any of that childish, disrespectful stuff that some men think is harmless. He should never let a friend cross a line around you, and he should never play into locker room talk. He should never joke about you, dismiss you, or say something in public that makes you feel small, not even casually. And that should tell you everything you need to know about the kind of man he is. Because that's not just respect, that's alignment. Because it's easy to be one version of yourself in private, but how someone acts when the world is watching says everything about them. And something I've deeply appreciated that's often overlooked is how he never disagrees with me or corrects me in front of others. Even if we have different opinions or I say something he might not fully agree with, he will never challenge me on the spot. He doesn't roll his eyes or make sarcastic jokes or say that's not true just to save face. He protects my voice, even when we're not on the same page. If something needs to be discussed, it's done in private. It's not performative. And it's not about putting on a united front just to look good. It's that we actually are aligned. And when something does need to be unpacked, it's done behind closed doors with care and warmth, not as public display. That kind of mutual respect creates such a solid sense of safety. And I just know I'll never be thrown under the bus to entertain others or make a point. I know I won't be made an example of. I know that if anything, he's got my back in the moment, even if he brings up a different perspective later on, because that's what high value men do. They treat you with the same love, admiration, and protection, whether it's just the two of you or a room full of people. They don't switch up to impress friends or seek validation. They lead by being grounded, by keeping their integrity intact, and by making sure their partner always feels secure and not scrutinized. And the truth is, being aligned in public isn't about being perfect. It's about being respectful. It's about saying we're on the same team and I'll never embarrass you, diminish you, or make you feel alone in a room where I'm standing in. And that's what it means to be solid. That's what it means to love in action. Last but definitely not least, one of the clearest green flags is where you stand in his life. My boyfriend will always make sure I'm okay before making plans with his friends. He checks in with me first, he ensures I have plans and that I'm set. He values my peace, my needs, and my presence, and he doesn't make me compete for attention or feel like I'm in the way of his life. And that doesn't mean he's not close with his family or doesn't have a life of his own. He does, but he always puts me first in the ways that matter, and I've never had to ask. He will skip a hangout to be there for me when I'm having a bad day. He'll make sure I'm comfortable before confirming anything else, and not because I expect it, but because it's who he is, and that says everything. So if you feel like you're always coming second to his parents, to his friends, to his phone, that's not a green flag. That's a breadcrumb, and you deserve more than just crumbs. And listen, guys, the green flags that matter, they're not always flashy. They're usually quiet, grounded, and consistent. And they show up in the little moments. You know, like the way he listens, the way he protects your energy, the way he holds space for your emotions. And if you're wondering if you're asking for too much, I'm here to tell you you're not. You're asking for the kind of love that's possible, and I promise you, once you experience it, you'll never go back. Now let's move on to the second part of this episode, which is talking about healthy masculinity. Not the internet version and not the outdated version, not the chest-thumping, emotionless, hyper-independent, I don't need anyone type that some men still think is attractive, but I mean actual grounded, safe masculinity, the kind that makes you breathe deeper just by being around it. Because here's the truth. Healthy masculinity is so underrated. It's often quiet and it's not flashy or loud. It doesn't need validation. And when you're in the presence of a man who is emotionally mature, stable, and anchored, you will feel it in your body. Your nervous system just finds a way to relax so deeply and your walls just start to melt. You feel so soft, not because you're trying to perform femininity, but because you're finally safe enough to be yourself. Healthy masculinity isn't performative. It's not about dominance, it's about leadership, in energy, in values, in integrity. It shows up in the way he handles stress, the way he makes decisions, the way he takes care of you without needing a spotlight for it. So one thing that stands out about a masculine man is that he doesn't need to drip in logos. There is a kind of quiet confidence in a man who doesn't need to advertise his worth. He's not constantly trying to show you how successful, cool, or in demand he is. He doesn't need a designer belt to feel valuable. He doesn't need to post a picture of himself online to show he's attractive. He knows who he is. My boyfriend doesn't drip out on logos. He's not active on socials because he doesn't need to. There is nothing performative about him. His energy speaks for itself. He's well-dressed, clean, and confident, but not in the way that's trying to prove anything to the outside world. And honestly, that is 100 times more attractive than a man who leads with aesthetic but has nothing underneath. Another thing a masculine man does is that he isn't obsessed with video games, sports, or gambling. And let's be real here, there's nothing inherently wrong with hobbies, but when a man is obsessed with distractions or constantly glued to a game controller or prioritizing sports over connection or emotionally invested in gambling, it shows you where his energy is going and is definitely not towards building something meaningful. Listen, my man has interests and he is fun, but he is not stuck in boyish habits that leave no room for emotional presence. He doesn't drown his stress in fantasy. He deals with things in the real world like a man. And if anything, my man would have loved to play video games, but he chooses not to because he has more productive things to do and higher priorities that take its place, like building a life for us, investing in his health, spending quality time with me and our families. And that doesn't mean he's boring, it means he's available. A masculine man will also support your feminine energy, not just tolerate it, because there is a huge difference between a man who puts up with your softness and one who makes space for it. A man in his healthy masculine doesn't get uncomfortable when you're emotional, expressive, or vulnerable. He meets you there. Your man should never make you feel like you need to shrink your emotions. He shouldn't get awkward when you cry. He shouldn't get irritated when you need reassurance because he stays present. He holds space. He sees it as part of the experience of loving you, not an inconvenience. And that's what allows you to relax into your feminine, because femininity flourishes when it feels held. Another thing a masculine man does is he offers, he provides, and leads without controlling. One of the strongest traits of healthy masculinity is the ability to lead without controlling, to offer without expecting, and to provide without ego. For example, my boyfriend opens doors, he plans experiences, protects our space, and offers support constantly, but never in a way that feels like I owe him anything. There is no power play, no I do this so you do that. It's just a natural desire to give and create safety. He doesn't need to flex dominance because he leads with presence, with thoughtfulness, with grounded energy. And because of that, I feel more secure. I feel more trusting and I feel more open. He doesn't need to control what I share online or wear in public or tell me what to do and what not to do because he's confident in my decisions and respects how I choose to carry myself. That's healthy masculine energy right there. It's not about being the loudest man in the room. It's about being the one whose presence makes you feel most yourself. And I'm going to say this again before I finish off with this part of the episode, but healthy masculinity isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just is. You feel it in how a man carries himself, how he treats you, and how he makes you feel. If you've never experienced it, it might feel unfamiliar at first, maybe even boring compared to the chaotic relationships we've normalized. But when you finally see it and feel it, you'll wonder how you've ever mistook emotional volatility for passion. Healthy love is quiet power, and a man who embodies that, he is a rare gem worth keeping, let me tell you. Moving on to the last part of the episode, which is my relationship standards now and why they're not too much. Because let me be honest, my standards used to be based on what I thought was realistic. I had a list in my head of what I wanted, but it was sprinkled with compromise. Compromise that I never questioned because I had never experienced anything better. That's what I tell myself. Things like, well, he maybe doesn't do that because he's just not that kind of guy, or no relationship is perfect, so this is probably good enough. And that mindset right there kept me stuck accepting far less than I deserved for way too long. But then I experienced real, consistent, intentional love. I experienced a partner who doesn't just say he loves me, but he shows it in the way he speaks, the way he moves, and builds with me. And suddenly, that old list felt like a joke. I didn't raise my standard out of ego, I raised them out of clarity. Once you've seen what's possible in love, you simply can't unsee it. And more importantly, you don't want to. And let's also be so clear, money means nothing without character. Yes, financial security is a basic foundation, but is not the core of love. You cannot build a meaningful relationship off of someone's income, lifestyle, or what he can give you on paper. Because when the hard seasons hit, when success fades, or when jobs shift, or when life tests you, none of that matters if he can't lead with heart, consistency, and strength. And if you can't love your man through a rock bottom season, then he is not the man for you. And if he wouldn't show up just as strong if you lost everything, then he's not your partner either. The right person is valuable because of who they are, not what they have. A really good test to see if your man is the one for you, close your eyes and imagine him with nothing. No money, no job title, no materialistic items, absolutely nothing. Would you still love him? Would you still be there for him? Would you still be happy? That is a great way to see if your man is the one for you. Now, for me, I no longer entertain emotional unavailability because if you can't speak about your feelings, take accountability, or show emotional presence in moments that matter, I'm not available for that anymore. Emotional unavailability isn't mysterious. It's so immature. And now at this point in my life, I expect clear communication. I expect honesty. I expect someone to say how they feel, even if it's uncomfortable, because anything less leaves way too much space for anxiety to grow. And healthy love doesn't feed anxiety, it calms it. I also don't mistake effort for love. There was a time where I would be so touched when someone tried to do the bare minimum, tried to make plans, tried to listen, tried to stay faithful. But effort without depth isn't love. It's performance. Now in my life, I look for patterns. Not just one good day, but consistency. Not just gestures, but presence. Because love isn't something you clock in and out of. It's in the daily showing up. And if it's not felt without having to ask for it, it's not real. Another thing is I expect alignment, not potential. I'm done dating potential. I've learned that you cannot build a relationship on someone who could be. You build it on who they are right now. My man aligns with me in values, in lifestyle, in pace, and I don't have to drag him into my world. I don't have to shrink to fit into his. We meet in the middle, naturally. And that alignment, it makes everything flow. You shouldn't be exhausted trying to explain your needs. When someone is for you, you won't need a translator. You will feel seen, understood, and respected as is. I also don't tolerate subtle disrespect. And I know we touched on this earlier, but the kind of jokes that just aren't funny, the public comments that leave you embarrassed, and the little digs that are always followed by, relax, it's not that deep, or, it's really not that serious. I don't tolerate that one bit. It's so immature and childish, and a man who loves you speaks about you with reverence in private and in public. He protects your name in rooms you're not even in. He doesn't need to be told that certain things aren't appropriate. He just knows, because when a man respects you, it shows in his tone, not just his words. I also expect emotional leadership and not emotional chaos. I am no longer interested in the emotional chaotic type anymore. The ones who need constant drama to feel alive. The ones who disappear when things get hard. Or worse, the ones who explode. Now in my life, I value emotional leadership. And that doesn't mean being perfect or always having it together. It means taking responsibility. It means being able to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I'm working through it. It means not making me pay for his bad day. A man who can regulate his emotions is a man who can love well. I can tell you that. That's the truth. And lastly, I don't compromise on being supported. I used to think that as long as someone let me chase my goals, that was enough. But just staying out of the way isn't the same as being on my team. Now in my life, I need someone who's actively in my corner, who believes in me, who offers ideas, who's hands-on, who checks in, who reminds me I'm capable even when I forget, who keeps me in check for my goals. Because when I'm supported, I flourish. And guess what? The right partner wants that for you. My final thoughts for this section of the episode is that, listen, my standards aren't high. They're healthy. They're based on love that expands me and not shrinks me. And if that intimidates someone, they're definitely not my person. You don't need to lower your standards to find love. You need to hold them long enough for the right one to show up. And when he does, you will realize that everything you were asking for wasn't too much. It was just rare. Because here's the truth. The man a woman chooses says so much about how much she loves and respects herself. Your relationship should be a reflection of your inner worth, not your fear of being alone. And the love I'm in now isn't loud. It's not made up of grand gestures or wild chaos or those dramatic highs and lows we're taught to crave. It's not performance, it's just peace, a softness, a knowing. And that's what I wish more women knew, that love doesn't have to feel like survival. It doesn't have to keep you guessing, and you don't have to perform, audition, or prove your worth to be loved deeply. Because when you're with the right person, someone grounded, present, emotionally mature, You feel safe in a way you didn't even realize you were missing. You soften up without even trying. You become more yourself, not less. There's no shrinking and no censoring, no let me not say this or he might pull away type thing. You're held. And when you're held like that, everything in your life starts to shift. You speak more clearly. You rest more deeply. You glow from a place no serum could ever reach. You start to believe, maybe for the first time, that love isn't something you have to survive. It's something you can build into the most beautiful, consistent part of your world. So if you're listening to this, and realizing that you've been asking for crumbs, just know it's okay. We all start somewhere. But now that you've heard what's possible, and now that you've been reminded of the standard, I don't want you to forget it. And I do want to say, my relationship is not perfect, and nor was it like this when we first started dating. We built this together, and we want it to be better for each other. And even if there's nothing wrong in your relationship, even if you're being treated well on paper, don't discount the quiet voice in you that wants more depth, more alignment, more emotional safety. It's not ungrateful. It's not dramatic. It's self-honoring. You are allowed to want a relationship that doesn't just work, but feels good every single day. One where you're not just cared for, but cherished. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong person if you've never felt this kind of support. And the right man, he's going to show up with peace, not pressure, with answers, not avoidance, and with clarity, not chaos. He will make you feel chosen, not just convenient. So here is your permission to raise the bar, to stop explaining your standards, and to stop tolerating emotional laziness, to believe in love that feels like home, because it exists, and I promise you it does. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone you love or someone who needs to hear it. And remember, peace is the new passion, so do not settle for anything less. To everyone else, if you've made it this far, I appreciate you so, so much, and I can't wait to chat with you again in next week's episode. Lots of love, Parmis.